Ebola has come to Manhattan. State and local government now scrambling to assure the population and get a handle on this before it does explode. And then there's the matter of the new Ebola Czar and what the president's dithering means to all of it. Welcome to MidPoint, part of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee dealing with the new Ebola Czar. Representing the 27th District of Texas, Representative Black Farenthold. Congressman, thank you so much for being here today.
Good to be with you.
Let me ask you straight up, how frustrated, how angry are you with all the foot dragging, the apologies, and the assurances that the administration, the CDC, and others continue to give you, your committee, and others when it comes to dealing with this Ebola issue?
It is infuriating. They're more interested in politics than dealing with a healthcare crisis. Why can't, they talk about an overabundance of caution, closing a bowling alley, pulling the seats out of an airplane. Well, if we're going to be overly abundant of caution minded, let's ban flights to these affected countries.
When we talk about banning flights, we have had people on the air, including we had a doctor on the air who's actually in Sierra Leone. He says that would be the worst thing to do. We need American help because, in his own words, he said, America, you are the police of the world. Without you, we can't get anything done. How do we get around that then and at least still be able to help? Because people say if America doesn't show up at ground zero in Northern Africa, in Western Africa right now, this thing will blow up.
It's not like we don't have any airplanes in the military. There's C-130s. There are a ton of military airplanes. We can send relief workers, equipment, and doctors in. We don't need to let tourists from these countries come on commercial airliners with, innocent folks.
Then why then? And this is what the American people, I'm sure your constituents and the people who watch this program every day want to know. You're putting the pressure on. Others as well in Congress are. On both sides of the aisle are saying, let's get something done. Is this just the president basically gambling with human lives, knowing that he's got to do something to get to the midterms first?
That's what I think. That's my opinion.
Then
yes.
How do we push him? How do you then, as a lawmaker, how do the others get under this man's skin, whomever it is, and force them to do something? I know you're doing something right now in committee, but what else can you do?
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm on the program with you today. I think my Democrat colleagues who have his ear more than I do, certainly those Senate candidates that he's trying so desperately to get reelected, ought to pick up the phone and beg him to do the right thing.
Is there anybody sitting on the left right now, or who is sitting on the left right now, who is trying to help you, trying to get that done? Anybody?
Well, I think if you watched the hearing that the Government Oversight and Reform Committee had, I think there was a bipartisan support for doing more and talking less politics. Obviously, to some degree, some of the Democrats are circling the wagon, but even a partisan committee that's accused of partisanship, the way the Government Oversight and Reform Committee is, I'll argue we're not nearly as partisan as we're portrayed to be, agree on common sense issues.
Should we at least, and this is something else that we've discussed on this show with so many different people, and I'd like to get your opinion. This comes down to panic. There are certain cable networks, there are websites, there are irresponsible people who are out there throwing as much panic around as they possibly can about Ebola. Wouldn't you say from the lawmaker's position that we need to at least tell the American people that they don't need to panic at this point, that we've got to tamp that down because that in itself could become dangerous?
Absolutely. You have a much higher chance of dying of the flu than you do of Ebola. But you've also got a disease that has a high death rate, that is contagious, that we need to keep out of the United States. And I do think we should not panic, but we should certainly be cautious and err on the side of caution.
With the people in Texas, with what happened there, certainly that's almost a ground zero, if you will, for what's happening right now. What are they saying now about not only just what was done, but what has happened since? Because thankfully, the first nurse has turned up Ebola-free right now. It seems as if we've got this under control. Are they at least happy that something was done and enough was done after the initial diagnosis to stop it in its tracks there?
I think we are learning from our mistakes. We see a lot of government finger-pointing, one agency pointing the finger at the other, or the CDC saying the nurses violated protocol right before they changed the protocol. You got nobody willing to accept responsibility, but we have moved forward. We have changed the protocols. We're now sending all the patients to centralized hospital. We are learning from our mistakes, and I think that's a good thing, and I think that's going to be something that is one of the key factors in keeping Americans safe and limiting the spread of this disease. But we can't let it get into politics. We've got to base our decisions on sound science and an overabundance of caution.
What about the doctor himself and the way that this doctor with Doctors Without Borders came into the country, tried to do everything that he thought was correct? We've heard from a doctor today who has told us that Doctors Without Borders is a wonderful group. They do great work, but even they do not take their doctors and quarantine them when they've been in Ebola areas. That's frightening, isn't it?
Well, the issue is, what are the protocols with someone coming back from that area? And there are conflicting reports. But I certainly think taking public transportation within the first 21 days, getting on a crowded subway in New York, would be questionable behavior. I'd lean on and err on the side of precaution. I'd be spending as much time as possible in my home and getting takeout delivered rather than going out in public.
You slammed the administration's plans for the airport screenings. Since you came out and verbally lambasted the administration for that, has anything happened, or is it still basically a waste of time and money?
Well, I think they're trying. Their initial proposal of only 5 airports let a lot of openings for folks to come in. They're funneling everyone from the affected countries to the 5 airports is a step in the right direction, but I don't think it's enough. I think we ought to follow the lead of some of our European allies and just say, look, no travel there on commercial air, and if you need to get in and out for humanitarian or military reasons, we've got military transport or charter flights that can do that.
20 seconds. I need to get your final comment, if you will, on Ron Klain as the Ebola Czar. I know that's what you're dealing with right now.
He should have been at the hearing today. We need a medical doctor, not a spin doctor.
And is the problem here that no one is listening at that point to put that doctor in there?
Well, I think we've got Klain now. We've got to make the best of it. But if he's going to coordinate all of government, he needs to coordinate with Congress, who signs the checks.
Needs to do a little better job there. Representative Blake Farenthold. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. We'll look forward to the next time.
Thanks.
All right, next on the dance card, Amazon dancing around some negative figures. And a little bit later on this hour, the only way to perfectly end the week. It's verbal shots, it's politicians, it's comedians, and no, I'm not going to tell the jokes because they're the professionals, not me. The political punching bag is coming up right here on MidPoint.